Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on a hidden force that's secretly running the show in our economy. It explains why good news can sometimes be a total disaster, and why even the most powerful plans can completely fall apart. So let's get right into it.
All right, let's kick things off with a little puzzle. Imagine some amazing new technology lets farmers grow more wheat than ever. I mean, it's a record harvest. So how is it possible that this fantastic news could be the very thing that drives those farmers out of business?
And here's another one for you. Back in the 70s, the oil cartel OPEC basically had the world economy by the throat. They decided to cut the supply of oil to make prices skyrocket. And for a while, man, it worked like a charm. But then, their whole plan just collapsed. Their power to control the market vanished. What in the world happened?
Yeah, I know. These situations sound totally backward, right? More food should mean more money, and if you control all the oil, you should be able to set any price you want. But it turns out both of these puzzles have the exact same secret answer. The key that unlocks all of this isn't some crazy complicated formula. Nope, it's one single, really powerful idea that's all about how we, people and businesses, react when things change.
And that master key is a concept called elasticity. Seriously, once you grasp this, you are going to start seeing how it works absolutely everywhere.
You know, in the simplest terms, elasticity just means responsiveness. Or think of it as stretchiness. When the price of something changes, how much does our behavior change in response? Do we stretch and adapt, or do we just stay put? So you can think of demand for any product in one of two ways. It can be inelastic, which is like trying to stretch a brick. It just doesn't move. Or it can be elastic, like a rubber band. You pull on it and it stretches a whole lot. So what makes demand more like that stretchy rubber band? Well, it usually comes down to three things. First, if there are lots of substitutes. Price of butter goes up, no big deal, you just grab the margarine. Second, if it's a luxury. You know, people will give up their plans to buy a sailboat way before they'll skip a visit to the doctor. And finally, time. The more time you have, the easier it is to change your habits and find alternatives. Okay, now this is where things get really interesting and where we get to the heart of our puzzles. See, elasticity isn't just some abstract idea. It has a direct and really powerful link to how much money a business actually brings in. We're talking about total revenue. It's the lifeblood of a company, and the formula is super simple. It's just the price you charge for something multiplied by how many you sell. Price times quantity. But understanding how elasticity messes with that number, that is the whole game.
Okay, let's connect the dots. Imagine you're selling something with inelastic demand. You know, something people need, like medicine or gasoline. What happens if you raise the price?
Well, since demand is inelastic, people still pretty much have to buy it. The number of sales, the quantity, barely drops at all. But now you're making way more on each one. So your total revenue, that P times Q, actually goes up. You sell a little less, but you make so much more per sale that you come out way ahead. Okay, but now let's flip it. What if your product has elastic demand? Think of something with tons of competition, like a specific brand of soda or meals at a restaurant. What happens if you jack up your prices now? Well, your customers have options, and they'll use them. They'll switch to a competitor, or they'll just decide not to buy it at all. The quantity you sell just plummets. So even though you're charging more for each item, you end up selling so much less that your total revenue goes way, way down. And that, right there, is the secret sauce. For inelastic goods, price and revenue move in the same direction. For elastic goods, they move in opposite directions. This one simple rule is the key that completely unlocks both of our big puzzles. So let's go back to our farmer. That new technology floods the market with wheat, right? So the supply goes way up. But here's the thing. Demand for a basic food like wheat is super inelastic. People don't suddenly start eating twice as much bread just because it got a little cheaper. So prices crash, but the amount people buy only goes up a tiny bit. The drop in price is so much bigger than the increase in sales that the total revenue for all farmers just collapses. The good news for the harvest becomes terrible news for the farmer's wallet. And this isn't just some textbook theory. This weird paradox is exactly why governments sometimes have policies that literally pay farmers not to grow crops. By keeping the supply down, they help keep prices up. And because demand is so inelastic, this actually increases the total amount of money for the whole farming industry. Crazy, right? And now, OPEC. In the short run, everything was inelastic. You can't just find new oil fields overnight, and people can't just get rid of their gas-guzzling cars in a week. So, when OPEC cut the supply, nobody could react quickly.
The price went through the roof, and their bank accounts exploded.
But the long run is a whole different story. Those super high prices gave everyone a massive incentive to change. People started buying smaller, more fuel-efficient cars. Other countries started drilling like crazy to find their own oil. Over time, both demand and supply became much more elastic, much more like that rubber band. And OPEC's power to keep prices high, it just melted away.
And you can apply this same logic to really complex social issues too, like drug policy. The demand for addictive drugs is extremely inelastic, so if a policy focuses on interdiction, that is, reducing the supply, it drives the street price way up. But since addicts still need their fix, this can actually increase the total amount of money spent on drugs, which might fuel more crime to pay for it. On the other hand, a policy focused on education and treatment tries to reduce demand itself. That lowers the price and the quantity sold, which means total spending on drugs goes down. It's a really clear example of how understanding elasticity can point to completely different solutions.
So as you can see, this isn't just about farming or oil. Elasticity is this powerful new lens that you can use to look at the world and understand why markets do these strange, counterintuitive things. You know, there's this old joke that you can teach a parrot to be an economist just by getting it to say supply and demand. But now you know the real secret. You've gone a level deeper. It's not just about which way things are moving. Elasticity tells you about the size of the move, the magnitude, and that's where the real story is. So the next time you see a strange headline about prices or a new technology that's supposed to change everything, you'll have the key. You'll know to ask the right question. Is the demand for this thing elastic or is it inelastic? Now that you have this tool, what puzzles are you going to solve?